If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus.
I implore you, dear listener of the program, how are you? Please sit back, relax. Let us go on a journey of the mind today. Let us contemplate, let us think about what even it means to be thinking about things. This is Ryan Singer. Welcome to Me and Paranormal You. This is the podcast for all things paranormal, supernatural, mystical, outside the box, fringe, secret societies, philosophical ponderings, theosophical ponderings as well. You know, we love some, I've been a member of the Theosophical Society since roughly around 2017. And you might be asking yourself, well, geez, how do I get into that secret club? Well, it's pretty easy. You go to the website and you make a donation and you're a member of the club. I have never been to the headquarters. I have not yet been to the headquarters. This summer, I will be traveling to the headquarters one way or the other. I'm going to figure it out. That is in Illinois, the headquarters. I'll make a trip out there. I got to get caught up on my dues. Actually, I think I'm about 3 weeks tardy on my dues. I'm tardy on my dues on a couple different groups that I belong to. One of them is SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Guild. I need to get caught up on my dues for that because, the Oscars are in, a little over a week. I do not vote. I am not a voting member of the Academy, in case you were wondering. But I'm also a member of other groups. You can be a member of any group that you really want to, I suppose. You can just tell people you are, and not everybody's going to fact check you. Or you can actually just legitimately include yourself through membership, through community. You might find comfort in community with like-minded individuals who, at the very least, share common interests that aren't originating from a hateful place, which there's a lot of that going on, especially in this country right now. Oh, 'tis this land of thee, whatever, it's, yeah, it is what it is. In the meantime, we are going to dive into a couple. I have been getting books like I have my own. Like I have a separate library house. I don't know how you are with buying books. There's fewer things in life. I mean, buying a new book is up there with buying a new crystal or a baseball card for me. I love these things. And also technology gadgets. I love those things as well. But books especially. Let's kick this bad boy off, shall we? And let's get into something. I mean, I've got books. I'm surrounded by books. Could a man marry a book? Could a person marry a book? Where are my glasses? Don't even get Nigel started right now that I can't find my readers. What? Oh, hold on. They're on the floor. I found them. That's, because that's where everyone keeps their readers, on the ground somewhere close by. The Idea of the World, a multidisciplinary argument for the mental nature of reality. Bernardo Kastrup. one of the better known modern day idealists. Part 1. What is wrong with a contemporary philosophical outlook? This is from that book that I just read you the title of. Contemporary methods employ predominantly dualistic procedures that do not extend beyond simple subject-object relationships. They limit our understanding to what is commensurate with the present Western mentality. Jean Gesber, The Ever-Present Origin. To learn more about mental... Sorry. Everybody in my house has been watching that SNL 50-year thing, so the word "lorn" is thrown around a lot. To learn more about mental aspects of the world, we should try to discover manifest principles that partially explain them, though their causes remain disconnected from what we take to be more fundamental aspects of science. The gap might have many reasons. Among them, and has repeatedly been discovered, and the presumed reduction base was misconceived. My guy, Noam Chomsky. What kind of creatures are we? That's what that's from. Now, let me just read you a little bit of the preamble here, okay? Because as you know, I've been chirping about idealism for, I don't know, it's probably years now over here. So Chapter 1, Preamble to Part 1. A natural and perhaps even necessary first step in a book that aims to offer an alternative account of reality is to highlight what is wrong with the current approaches. After all, why bother with alternatives if the status quo is fine? As such, my intent in the next 2 chapters is not to gratuitously attack my peers in science and philosophy, but to highlight the need and secure the intellectual space for what is later argued in Part 2. The fact is that mainstream physicalist ontology fails rather spectacularly to account for the most present and sole undeniable aspect of reality, the qualities of experience. Parenthetically, he writes, see The Hard Problem of Consciousness in Chalmers, 2003. Physicalism is also arguably irreconcilable with results now emerging from physics laboratories around the world. For example, Kim, around the year 2000, Groblacher probably. Anyway, there's an umlaut over there. Around 2007, Romero, 2010. Okay, and list some more. Unless one takes so many liberties with the meaning of the word physicalism, that is, spirit is outright contradicted. So both in terms of its explanatory power and its consistency with empirical observations, our mainstream view of the nature of reality is found wanting. Academically popular alternatives, such as bottom-up panpsychism, face many of the same empirical challenges, as well as analogous limitations in terms of explanatory power. See also, for instance, subject combination problem. Yet my purpose with the next 2 chapters is not to compile a long and tedious list of the empirical and philosophical challenges faced by current ontologies. These challenges are well known and recognized in scientific and philosophical circles, there being no need to further stress them. What I want to attempt here is something more ambitious and hopefully, ultimately more constructive, to point out the failures and internal contradictions of the very thought processes that led to these flawed ontologies in the first place. Only by understanding these failures and contradictions as underlying causes of our present philosophical dilemma, or dilemmas, can we hope to reform our thinking and eventually solve the dilemmas. In this context, Chapter 2 discusses what is perhaps the root of our contemporary philosophical ailment, the tendency to explain things by replacing concrete reality with abstractions. Oh, okay, that's interesting, right? That's me saying that. He didn't just, that would be funny. You write a sentence and then in your own book, you're like, that's interesting, right? I wouldn't be surprised if I have a sentence like that in the upcoming comedy paranormal memoir, Shapeshifter, by yours truly, Ryan Singer. That will be out at some point this year, one way or the other. You bet your bottom dollar. So let's read that again. The root of our contemporary philosophical ailment, according to Kastrup, is the tendency to attempt the tendency to attempt to explain things by replacing concrete reality with abstractions. Such attempts consist by and large of mere word games, played in thought with a rich phantasmagoria of concepts, and represents perhaps the single greatest threat to our ability to remain grounded in reality in the 21st century. In a cultural environment, because of the gap. Okay, let's start over there. In a cultural environment that, because of the gap left open by the loss of religious myths, tacitly expects the latest scientific and philosophical theories to dazzle and boggle the mind, scientists and philosophers alike seem ever more willing to lose themselves in a forest of abstractions, highly prone to category mistakes. This cultural legitimization of explanation by ungrounded abstraction is a hydra with many heads. I would be interested to know if Bernardo believes that paranormal phenomena is one of the heads of this hydra. We're running around explaining the meaning of existence all the time, aren't we? Let's see here. Okay, so he goes on to say, Chapter 3 represents my attempt to identify these heads and diagnose the specific intellectual afflictions behind quandaries such as the hard problem of consciousness and the subject combination problem. I hope to show that these quandaries are merely artifacts of unanchored thought with no grounding in non-conceptual reality. So, the tendency to attempt to explain things by replacing concrete reality with abstractions. Now, this is indeed written by a philosopher, all right? And you might be saying, yeah, Rye, you can call me Rye. If that's the vibe you're feeling, if you're feeling me as a Rye, I say, hey, go for it, friend. If you're thinking to yourself, hey, Rye, let's get to the point here, Rye. If you're thinking, hey, Rye, he's clearly a philosopher. I don't really read a lot of philosophy because I find a lot of the verbiage to be superfluous. I'd love if someone said that. I find the verbiage to be superfluous, and many times using extant words. Yeah, well, obviously. What is an abstraction? So if concrete reality, the attempt to explain concrete reality, through abstractions or with abstractions or whatever, right? The act of considering something as a general quality or characteristic, apart from concrete realities, specific objects or actual instances. An impractical idea, something visionary and unrealistic. The act of taking away or separating withdrawal. An abstract or general idea or term. So we can get more into that here in a little bit. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. No commercials ever. Did you enjoy the Paranormal Carnival? It's out there. It's alive. We'll be right back. And we've returned. I hope you have. Welcome back to the program. We're talking about The Idea of the World, a multidisciplinary argument for the mental nature of reality, written by Bernardo Kastrup. Let me read just a little. He has an excerpt of a poem here from my guy and your guy, old Johnny Boy, John Keats. O Posey, for thee I grasp my pen, that am not yet a glorious denizen of thy wide heaven, yet to my ardent prayer yield from thy sanctuary some clear air. So, I love the word posy. I mean, that's part of the. If you've ever read The War of Art, Pressfield gets an divine posy. You read like the Ode to the Muse, right? Is in there as well. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. Now some of these are big ideas here, right? And at the end of the day, I go around like a chicken with my metaphorical head cut off, and you might say it's been abstracted, removed from my body. And I'm blabbering about idealism, and I'm blabbering about the true nature of reality. The foundational aspect of reality anyway is consciousness, is thought, and exists outside of the physical realm, which everything, and everything is built upon that foundation of consciousness, if we want to think of it as like a layered system or a pyramid or something like that, right? And so, like, what does it even mean? And what arguments and what evidence do we have for such wild claims, one might ask? Well, we can look back through, I think it was Michael Talbot, if I'm not mistaken, my dear good friend and brilliant stand-up comedian Tom Simmons many years ago recommended the book The Holographic Universe to me. I probably read that book at least 15 years ago, 20 years ago now. And The Holographic Universe, R.I.P. Michael Talbot, he died from HIV. But The Holographic Universe was one of these things, right? That tried to explain the nature of reality and the unbelievable things and the unexplainable things and phenomena that are actually occurring according to, the evidence and people's reports of them. Now, I don't want to rehash all this stuff because I went through, there's a couple different specific case studies in that book. I can't even remember the exact names. But you need to dig a little deeper on, what is it, Baba Saga, or I can't remember his name. Anyway, one of those like oil my genital kind of guys, who's a guru kind of person. And it's just like, ugh, come on, man. Like, oh, you can manifest like gold from thin air, and you will project your own image onto the surface of the moon, and you're having Westerners come into your tent and oil your genitals, for $1,000. They have to pay $1,000 to do it. It's just, it's another dude with a downfall dick. It's just like, ugh, come on. Now, not to kink shame, but it maybe don't be a religious guru if that's what you're into. Okay. Any Hoodles. So what is the foundational aspect of reality? Is it consciousness, and what does that mean? I mean, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change your experience. Let's be clear about that. I mean, I think we can see that all around us, whether the government comes out tomorrow and announces that ETs are here amongst us and have been, and, oh, actually you work with one, his name's Todd. It doesn't change your experience, what your experience has been, being alive and in the meat suit, right? When your consciousness is kind of, I think we talked about, we're kind of like these ravioli noodles in the soup of consciousness, the noodles that have the hollow, not the ravioli, the penne. Is that penne noodles? I'm going to have to I'm going through this whole process again in my head, even though I did it previously on a recording. The noodles that are the tubes that are hollow and have like the angled cut ends, that's like the human body, and consciousness is the pasta sauce or the soup that goes through that, around us, through us. And it is also soaked into us, into our noodle. So our noodles are soaked through and through with the consciousness soup and sauce. So yeah, I mean, there you go. I mean, but I should just get Bernardo on the line and just tell him that, and he'll be like, "We solved it. We got to the bottom of it. Shut down the large hadron collider, or whatever it's called." So I can't remember all the words that I learned, and I can't be expected to, and you can't be expected to either. So hey, I'm not going to hold you accountable to something, to an unrealistic standard. That's not my job here, okay? I want to get into, we're not going to deep dive into this book, full disclosure. I haven't finished the book, so we're not going to deep dive into it. There's also another book that I recently got that was recommended to me from a brilliant artist, Renee Wilson, The Worm at the Core, on the Role of Death in Life, by Sheldon Solomon, Jeff Greenberg, and Tom Pazinski. Now, I do think these things are related, and I think we can figure out a way to maybe connect these two. And if you'll bear with me here, I think we're going to get into that. Okay, so bear with me as I give you just a snippet of the beginning of this book. And I think that we'll be surprised. Is this like a dual book draw bridge builder. This is building bridges between a book draw build bridger. Maybe that's what we'll call it. Managing the terror of death. The cradle rocks above an abyss, and common sense tells us that our existence is but a brief crack of light between two eternities of darkness. Vladimir Nabokov. Speak. Memory. A memoir. On Christmas Eve, 1971, 17-year-old Julianne Kopke and her mother, Maria, a German ornithologist, were flying from Lima, Peru, in a plane with 90 other passengers over the Amazon jungle. They were on their way to celebrate Christmas with Julianne's father, the brilliant zoologist Hans Wilhelm Kopke, in the city of Pucallpa. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning hit the airliner's fuel tank. The plane broke apart in smoke, fuselage, and cinders 2 miles above the gigantic, sparsely inhabited rainforest. Swept from the plane, Julianne found herself flying into the open sky. All was silent. Strapped into her seat, she felt herself tumbling through the air and saw the jungle canopy spinning toward her as she hurtled earthward toward what seemed like her certain death. Her fall was broken by the thick foliage. She fainted. When she came to, she unbuckled herself from the still attached seat and felt around. One shoe was missing, as were her glasses. She felt her collarbone. It was broken. She discovered a deep gash in her leg and a wound in her arm. One of her nearsighted eyes had been swollen shut. The other was just a slit. She was dizzy from a bad concussion. But because she was in shock, she felt no pain. She called and called and called for her mother, no response. She found that she could walk, and so she walked. For 11 days, Julianne stumbled through the Amazon jungle, home to caimans, tarantulas, poisonous frogs, electric eels, and freshwater stingrays. She endured torrential downpours, sucking mud, brutal heat, and the constant onslaughts of swarming, stinging insects. Eventually, she found a small creek. Remembering what her father had taught her, that most people tend to live near waterways, she followed the stream to a larger river. She waded into the piranha and stingray-infested water and began slowly swimming and floating downstream. Finally, she came upon a motorboat. She had the presence of mind to pour gasoline from a small tank on the maggots, killing many. Okay, I skipped it. Full disclosure, I skipped it. There was maggots took up residence in her wounds. Okay, we're going to come back. I mean, because that's a... I didn't mean to jump ahead on you on that one, because that's a smash cut. That's what we call a smash cut. We're going to be right back, and we're going to dig back into the worm at the core on the role of death in life. Be right back. Okay, we're back. We're reading from The Worm at the Core. I'll go back a little bit. Her state of shock saved her. She wasn't really hungry and felt as if she'd been psychologically muffled in cotton. But the clouds of biting, stinging insects tortured her. She tried to rest under the trees, but sleep was nearly impossible. Maggots took up residence in her wounds. Her insect bites became badly infected. She got so sunburned from floating on the river under the Amazonian sun that she bled. But she pressed numbly on. Finally, she came upon the motorboat. She had the presence of mind to pour gasoline from a small tank on the maggots, killing many of them. After a few days, the owners of the boat found her near their small hut and took her to the nearest town 7 hours away. She was the only survivor of the crash. We've all heard amazing tales of people who defied death against all odds, the survivors of the Donner Party or the Titanic, those who lived through the bombings of Dresden, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki. Such stories reflect the fact that all living beings are born with biological systems oriented towards self-preservation. Over billions of years, a vast array of complex life forms have evolved, each distinctively adapted to survive long enough to reproduce and pass their genes on to future generations. Fish have gills. Rose bushes have thorns. Squirrels bury acorns and retrieve them months later. Termites eat wood. There seems to be no limit to the marvelous variety of ways creatures of all species adhere to the fundamental biological imperative, staying alive. If you discover a bat flittering around in your closet and you enter the dark space with a tennis racket to kill it, you'll be in for a royal battle because the creature will fight to survive. Even earthworms strenuously avoid death, as anyone who's tried to bait a hook can attest. You split them in two, they persist. You try to get them on the hook, they struggle mightily. Once impaled, they defecate on your hand. I mean, it's interesting, right, to think that, there is this fight to survive. There is this fight to keep our flesh suits, our penne noodle floating in the soup of consciousness, right? Okay, this is where it starts getting, this is where we start, kicking it up a notch. Unlike bats and worms, however, the humans know that no matter what we do, sooner or later we will lose the battle against death. This is it, man. This is the whole thing, right? This is a profoundly unnerving thought. We may think we are afraid to die because our bodies will rot, stink, and turn to dust, or because we will leave our loved ones behind, because we've left important things unaccomplished, or because we have the sneaking suspicion that no loving God awaits us, ready to unfold us in his arms. But underlying all these concerns is that fundamental biological imperative. As Julianne Kopke and other survivors have discovered, we will do just about anything to stay alive. Yet we live with the knowledge that this desire will inevitably be thwarted. And this sentiment is true, and it has exceptions, obviously. And one of the most interesting aspects of wanting to stay alive, and we've talked about this, for me, it's the shining example of the mystery of death and the fear of death. And that is, inmates who are sentenced to death would rather spend the rest of their lives behind bars than they would be put out of their, quote unquote, misery or whatever, right? And through lethal injection or whatever it might be. They'd rather stay alive in prison for another 30 years, potentially, than face death. That tells us something, right? So how did we get into this predicament? Although we humans inherited the basic imperative to survive, we are different from all other forms of life in several crucial ways. We are not terribly impressive from a purely physical perspective. We are not especially large, nor are our senses, that's a fun sentence, right? Nor are our senses particularly keen. We move more slowly than cheetahs, wolves, and horses. Our claws are no more than fragile, dull fingernails. Our teeth aren't constructed for tearing into anything much tougher than an overdone steak. But the small band of African hominids from which we all descended were highly social, and thanks to the evolution of their progeny's cerebral cortices, our species eventually became extremely intelligent. These developments fostered cooperation and the division of labor, and they ultimately led our forebears to invent tools, agriculture, cooking, houses, and a host of other useful things. We, their progeny, multiplied and thrived. Our civilizations took root around the world. Now, it gets a little more nuanced here. The evolution of the human brain led to two particularly important human intellectual capacities: a high degree of self-awareness and the capacity to think in terms of past, present, and future. So, okay, one or two more sentences before we get into it. Only we humans are, as far as anyone knows, aware of ourselves as existing in a particular time and place. This is an important distinction. Unlike geese, monkeys, and wombats, we can carefully consider our current situation together with both the past and the future before choosing a course of action. It gives us a high degree of behavioral flexibility that helps us stay alive. Self-awareness has generally served us well. It's increased our ability to survive, reproduce, and pass on our genes. It also feels good. We can reflect on the fact that each of us, in Otto Rank's lovely words, quote, temporal representative of the cosmic primal force, end quote. Now, what's interesting here, this self-awareness and of being aware of ourselves in time and space and place, right? And, so we have this self-awareness. that is a separation from these other creatures, potentially, with the distinction of being aware of past, present, and future. Now, where it gets interesting is this self-awareness. Is this the consciousness that is the foundation of the universe? In fact, the soup that we're talking about, right? I believe that if it is not, it certainly is an ingredient, for sure, right? It's one of the ingredients that goes into the soup. So I don't want to I'm not going to summarize this entire book because obviously I haven't read the whole book, but there's other books over the years that we've gotten into. What was it? The End of Materialism. I mean, I can look back here over at this bookcase. There's other books about death and things like that. Like, oh God, I wish I could remember the name of the book. Was it The End of Materialism, where we talk about, as soon as we became self-aware, we became mortal. We were no longer immortal. And, if in fact the fear of death is controlling everything in our lives, and this book, I believe, without, spoilers, just from conversations I've had with Renee about it, and there's a great TED Talk from Sheldon Solomon as well, that covers just what's in this book, for the most part. But, in like 10, 12 minutes or whatever it is, which is impossible to do. But our whole society has been built upon being afraid of death. It has controlled everything, every single thing. It is imbued, embedded, entrenched in all that we have done and all that we are doing. And can we move on from it? We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back after this short break. Just hit that fast forward button a few times. And I'm back. I hope you're back as well. We're talking about, the fear of death controlling life, consciousness being the foundation of all things, potentially, right? We're kind of on board with that over here. How do we build that bridge between the materialistic and the idealism? Through idealistic and materialistic. Through materialism and idealism. How do we build that bridge? I'm trying to honor my soul contract here and not pick a side. How do we build that bridge? Well, I think we do it through experimentation, through thought journeys, through meditation, through sharing, through being curious, seeking mystery, seeking point of views from people who might disagree with us as well is another potential way to do that. I'm pretty juiced up today because I got to do my gateway meditation earlier in the day today than I usually do it at the end of the night. But I knew I was going to be up late probably doing other stuff like this. And, I love the nighttime, right? Okay, so let's just go through a quick thought experiment here. We become aware of our own death as these creatures. Oh, shoot. Uh-oh, we die. Uh-oh, I don't want to die. Oh, I must not die. There must be something. What's this something? Maybe we'll call it God. Oh, God will keep us alive. After physical form, we get to go on and live forever in heaven or these other places. We have many different lives. We just keep coming back. We don't die. We just keep coming back as different people. The paranormal tries to understand. This is the interesting part about it for me. Paranormal research and investigation tries to get in there and actually show evidence for the thing that is so woo-woo, right? It's trying to communicate with the dead. It's trying to, in the in-between space, showing that physical death is in fact real, but real death is not real. Now this is not to diminish the fact that you no longer get your loved one here hanging out with you and doing things or being there for you. For those people who have lost, a partner, a parent, a child, a friend. This is not to diminish life, physical life in any way. If nothing else, it shows us just how precious it is. And let's stop wasting time over here. I mean, are you kidding me? We're wasting minutes over here, right? By doing stuff we don't need to do. I mean, I've been binging Justified. What a great TV show. Now I'm going to tell you this, Raylan. Boyd. Anyway, you've seen Justified. You know it. You love it. I'm finally watching it. I had watched like maybe the first season and a half in the past maybe, but it's been 13 years or whatever it's been. 12 years. So I'm getting in on that. But is that just a waste of my precious minutes? Right? It's very enjoyable. And I also, for my life, I'm actually working on developing a TV show right now. So I just watch TV. You know, it's storytelling is part of who I am. And you can never, as a storyteller, you can never get enough stories. And that's just, that's why I love reading. That's why I love watching and listening as well, and also telling and performing. So the paranormal is trying to show evidence of basically idealism. I mean, I'm jumping a lot of hurdles here. I'm jumping a lot of steps. We skipped the floor. The elevator skipped the floors that we could have stopped at to maybe have a little more logical train of thought here. But the danger here is we have to be careful that the paranormal doesn't become one of these abstractions. Right. Removing itself, just kind of like, it's like, to me, it's kind of like the magician's hand over here. Like, hey, look at my hand over here. And meanwhile, the other hand's doing something. So you can't see what the real trick is. But for me, when we get EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, when we have an ITC device giving intelligent responses from somewhere, somehow, some way, coming through these devices that seem to have intelligence that is very specific to what? Specific to what? Here's the tie. Are we tying this in? Am I pulling this out of my ass? Time, place, and space, with specific details of who individually is involved. Right? Who has separated and become self-aware of oneself and therefore has a name, right? That we identify as in a time, in a space, in a place, right? We are aware of the past, present, and future. And when the voices that come through, when the information that comes through, whether it is a recorded EVP session or whether it is an ITC, an instrumental transcommunication device of any kind that is giving us specific, accurate information about the current place, the space, and or the time that we are asking a question about, this becomes extremely compelling information and, dare I say, evidential experience, which leads us to believe that the consciousness soup, right? The self-awareness soup is running through our noodle and also somebody else's noodle, some ghost noodles. There are ghost noodles. I didn't even think about that. There's ghost noodles in the soup. Ghost noodles. Who would have thought? Chef, oh boy, RD. I threw the extra O in there. Chef, oh boy, RD. Wow. Ghost noodles, right? So we got ghost noodles. I mean, this is, to me, this is where the juice is, right? This is where the excitement lies. This is why the paranormal is so fascinating and so interesting, especially when you start diving into a multidisciplinary, that's difficult for me to say, multidisciplinary, god damn, it's hard for me to say, Larry Sanders, multidisciplinary. If I do it in a different voice, it's easier for me to say. Why is that? Why is it easier for me to say words that Ryan can't pronounce them very easily, or at least yet hasn't learned to do them yet. But then when I try to do Rip Torn, multidisciplinary, Larry, then it's easier for me to say than multidisciplinary. I got it out there, but trust me, it was a struggle. I was on the struggle bus. So this is where the juice is. And we start approaching it with a multidisciplinary approach. We take, philosophical writings, breakthroughs in quantum physics, or parapsychological, scientific experimentation results. We add in technology and try to understand the technology to the best of our ability anyhow, which for me, listen, I'm never going to be a lug nut head. I'm never going to be a tweaker. That's not what tweaker means, right? I'm never going to be a wire head. You know what I mean? Never say never. But I have not up to this point ever been fascinated enough by the wirings of a thing to be like, oh, I love connecting these wires and building these things, the electronics. I have friends who like doing that. And they like building the boxes. They like doing the things, connecting the lights. That's not to say that shit can't be fun. Fuck, it can be oodles. Oodles of ghost noodles. Coming through. Oodles of ghost noodles. Toodles. Okay. Toodles. Got oodles of ghost noodles. Foodles. What if you're okay. I'm going to stop myself right there. This is where the juice is. Through these results, through paranormal investigations, and through experimentation in a parapsychological lab or other labs, these things that pop up that seem strange, these spooky actions at a distance, these unexplainable phenomena, what's this tubular device in a government lab that reaches a certain frequency and then interdimensional beings get physicalized into the space running around that look like demons or some shit, right? Like, what are these things, right? So what are these unexplainable phenomena? And in fact, they are explainable, yet we just don't have the explanation quite yet. That is where the juice is. Because to me, all I need to know, how about I say it like this? All I need to know is if there is just one EVP out there, if there is just one 15-second ITC session that's been recorded that is irrefutable evidence that there is an intelligence communicating, identifying as a person from a different place, space, and time, communicating in the present in a conversational manner. Not a residual haunting type message on a loop or something like that, but having a conversation with an intelligence, a disembodied intelligence. If there is only one, after all of these years of paranormal, from Hans Holzer to my buddy Eric Connor to what we do on these other investigations that I embark upon, which that'll be coming up soon too. I'll be back out there investigating sometime here soon. But if one of them is irrefutable, it proves everything. Capiche? Let's take a quick break here. Probably be our last break of this episode. We're going to come back and we're going to probably get juiced up about some more stuff. Because you know me, I love getting juiced and jacked and yacked and stacked. Oodles of ghost noodles. And we are back with the show. Let's put a bow on this. You think that I forgot that I have the Disclosure Project Briefing Document 2025 by Dr. Stephen Greer and his disclosure team, sensitive and confidential document that they made available for purchase. And I bought that so you didn't have to. And I will read this entire thing for you, right? And there's so much in here. Specifically talking about, this is related. This is in the neighborhood of what we were just talking about. If just one EVP or one recorded ITC session has irrefutable evidence of intelligent communication from someone who identifies, at least according to what the information they're giving us, as someone who used to be alive or a different alien intelligence or a spirit guide or something like that, that proves everything. That shows that physical death isn't real, and very likely that at least some iteration of idealism is very likely the nature of our reality. Now, I'm going to read to you a section here from this document so you can understand that great lengths have been gone to study this, to, I don't know, kind of keep it secret, to, to hide certain things that don't make sense, at least in the paradigm of the materialistic reality that we live in. Okay, so this is a section about what's the bigger overall section? Facilities module. I'm just going to read to you about the Pentagon, right? Sorry about that, because it's interesting, and you'll see like why go to such great lengths, right? Other than just being these nerds who want to have forts and secret forts. That's all these government bases are, with all these top secret clearances. Like, this is our fort. You don't know the password. You can't come in. It's our fort. You're not part of the gang. You're not part of the fort gang. What's the password? Can't come in. We've got special candy in here. The Pentagon. The Pentagon possesses an extensive underground network that deals with specific classified issues, including sub-basements not commonly known to most individuals within the Pentagon. This information comes from an individual with direct experience in these areas. The Technical Management Office, TMO, at the Pentagon extends down multiple levels and connects to other locations, highlighting the vast and complex nature of this infrastructure. This type of architecture is indicative of the lengths to which the covert shadow government has gone to secure key assets and personnel. Before delving into site-by-site analysis, it is important to consider how these sites might be protected. Tactical nuclear weapons, scalar weapons, scalar, people who do like scalar energy and talk about scalar energy and like healing and all this other kind of stuff, they have been called kooks for so long, right? They're at the Conscious Life Expo and things like that, but they're called, charlatans and kooks, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, it's just interesting, right? It's all coming full circle. Directional energy weapons and advanced sensor systems are employed for security. These sensors can detect movement on the surface, in the air, and underwater, triggering a rapid response to intercept any perceived threat, often with lethal force. This high level of security, which includes hardened access points designed to withstand even nuclear blasts, requires careful tactical planning and the right equipment to overcome. Securing the cooperation of individuals with authorized access to these facilities is likely the most efficient approach. However, given the current situation, it appears that there is only one individual within the system who might provide such access. This highlights the necessity of acquiring the cooperation of key assets prior to the commencement of any law enforcement operations. Whistleblower Redacted, who was read into technology capable of targeting a specific volume of space, shared that during the Iraq War, satellites were used to deploy an electromagnetic system capable of disabling all aircraft and vehicles within the targeted area. This system caused airplanes and helicopters to fall from the sky and stopped anything running on the ground. This whistleblower possesses crucial information about this technology, but is currently reluctant to cooperate, even within the secure confines of the Aero skiff. His reluctance stems from concerns over the protection of his pension and the personal security of himself and his family, especially given his disabilities from injuries sustained during his service. He has shown considerable heroism, but without explicit assurances of physical and financial protection, he remains hesitant. This is a matter that members of Congress should address immediately. Due to the limited resources and funding of our private organization handling these operations, there has been a challenge in tracking down and reconnecting with key figures such as Witness G.A., who, during the 1997 briefings for Congress, disclosed knowledge of operational details concerning the capability to initiate a global attack that could be made to appear as an alien threat, all at the press of a button. This capability existed in the early 1970s. The known address of witness GA could provide a valuable lead, though it is uncertain whether he is still alive. These assets should be handed over to someone with the capability to quickly verify his status through the appropriate systems. Access to such information is currently unavailable. However, if it turns out that witness GA is deceased, it is crucial to locate his service records and any surviving colleagues he may have worked with. These individuals did not operate alone, and those who removed witness GA from the hotel were explicitly identified as his former associates on these projects, brothers in arms, who initially requested that witness GA refrain from disclosing information, hoping they could regain control of those systems. Evidently, this has not been achieved. But, okay, there are several locations identified by various whistleblowers and individuals who have provided firsthand information either from their direct involvement in these operations or through accidental discoveries of facilities. These accounts are particularly valuable, and they come from people with no motive to deceive or engage in counterintelligence activities. Such serendipitous leaks from reliable sources contribute significantly to the understanding of these covert UFO operations, and all efforts have been made to map and document this information. There's a very important area around Palmdale in the Mojave Desert. That's out in my neck of the wood, Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale. Anyway, to me, that's the next big step in disclosure. Everybody, we're talking about UFOs, we're talking about UAPs, we're talking about aliens, we're talking about NHI, non-human intelligence. They're just always changing the letters and the words, and it's UFOs and aliens, okay? And maybe there's interdimensional beings as well, right? But that's not what we're talking about. So the next step is cryptids, creatures. Physical death is not real death. That, to me, is the path that disclosure takes. Now, we can bang this disclosure drum all day, all night long. And we should be doing that. And I want the paranormal cake, and I want to eat it too, right? We want all this disclosure to happen simultaneously. You know how many I have signed NDAs. Okay, I'm over here rattling about how I don't like NDAs, and I won't sign NDAs about information that I don't think that should be kept from people, right? No one has ever asked me to sign an NDA like that. Okay, that's not my pay grade over here. Okay, I'm a stand-up comedian who's had a paranormal podcast, going into the 12th year. That doesn't mean I have seen things, man, they don't want me to talk about. That is not the case. Okay. There have been agreements that I have made to not disclose certain information that's personal about people's lives, and I won't disclose that. If you've listened to this program at all, you know that I will not disclose the name of the woman who started me on my paranormal journey many, many years ago. That's not for me to do because it's been asked that I don't, and I won't. And there's no need for it. It doesn't add anything to the story, okay? Other than maybe intrigue for someone who likes to internet sleuth or something. I don't know, right? But it's not going to get you. It doesn't go anywhere, It doesn't lead to some great mystery being solved, even if you did, okay? Because, here I am still searching, trying to solve a mystery. So, and I know, I know everything about her. Well, not everything about her, obviously. You get it, right? If I'm still looking, think about that. There's your answer, right? So, and there, it's called being a person, and it's not I'll do anything I can to get to have an exciting episode of a podcast. You're going to burn bridges and deceive people just to have some intrigue and excitement on your podcast episode. where you're naming names and things for entertainment, for clicks, for what? It sounds so silly when you say it, when I lay it out like that, right? Because what we're talking about here is a bigger picture of, humanity, finding our place in the universe, understanding that our physical deaths aren't permanent in any way, shape, or form, and that the phenomena that has been mostly unexplainable and unknowable, at least in an academic or a scientific kind of way, someday will be and could be understood and known, and in fact is by a small group of people already in many aspects. Not all of it necessarily, but in many aspects, yes. And that should be disclosed. And I wouldn't not tell people that information. That's why no one's going to give me that information, you see, because I'm a blabbermouth, and I think people should know. That's why it will never be told to me. Okay, I think we got that figured out. And besides, I'm just, it's me we're talking about over here. Okay, I'm not trying to be like Jeremy Corbell or whatever, or whoever you want to. Stephen Greer's doing all the heavy lifting, and all these other people, and it's serious business. And I don't need that shit in my life. Okay, I mean, that's not to say that if I didn't stumble upon, or if I didn't discover some information that could change people's lives, I of course I would tell you. It would be my pleasure to do so. And we're still looking for more aliens to interview on the program. So if you're an alien and you're listening to this, or an interdimensional being, let's do it. Let's jump on the show. I got some questions. RyanSingerComedy.com is the website. Tour dates are popping up over there. Patreon.com/RyanSinger. Go do that. You can be a free patron. You don't even have to pay money. Also, the Paranormal Carnival. That podcast will be once a month live stream. March 11th will be the next one, 8 p.m. Eastern. So the new podcast is launched, and it's a live stream show, baby. We did it. Next one, March 11th. Mark that on your calendars. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Pacific, or Eastern, excuse me. 8 p.m. Eastern. So I hope you're doing well. I love you. I hope you love yourself. I hope to see you at a live show. If not, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.